The previously uploaded session was a back day, a full back day, meaning that I was doing the whole back side of my body. And although I'm uploading this a few days, with a few days delay, the next day I went in for a front day where I was mainly targeting the front part of my body with some differences here and there. So, I mean, if I'm working my shoulders, I was kind of categorizing that as a pushing movement where most of the musculature involved was going to be the front. It's obviously just a very arbitrary way of devising an administration of my working set and the allocation of all the exercises, but so is push-pull legs, upper lower, and all of the others. I just wanted to try something different, and I felt like splitting front and back is something that I haven't really seen anyone else do before, and I wanted to test it out, see if it's something that's doable. So considering the previous day, I was feeling discomfort in the glute, and even doing something like the sled drags, and especially the sled drags, was putting enough strain on the glute as I was getting into the generally light, to be fair, hip flexion that is required to just holding on to the sled and then pulling backwards. So even that was giving me a bit of discomfort. So I did that the previous day, and I started with those on this day here, and then I was getting into some more explosive sled pushes. In here, obviously it doesn't really fit within the front part of the body, because as I'm running basically with the weight in front of me, I'm thoroughly engaging the posterior chain and the glutes, which are responsible for that kind of movement. But because I was doing something the day before that was really not giving me a positive sensation, I wanted to see if reversing that motion was going to have a similar effect, and luckily it didn't. So I went very light on the drags and a bit heavier on the pushes. In here I was really focusing on keeping good dorsiflexion, really pushing into the ground and back, so that I was propelling myself forward, and not really going heavy on the weight, just trying to be a bit explosive. So as usual, I tend to superset many exercises, especially if I get the opportunity of doing something for the lower body and then superset with something for the upper body. Since the two things are mainly unrelated, I am able to just get from one exercise to the next without any resting time, and using the next exercise for the other part of the body to be resting the one that I've exercised previously. So this allowed me to get a fair amount of sets within a short time frame, and being able to recover from each exercise and each set with the subsequent superset. So I was ramping up and warming up for the overhead presses, where I did a bunch of sets, more sets than I usually do. I did 4 sets on the overhead presses. So 40 kilos still. I went 7 in the first one, 6 in the second one. The 6th was kind of hard. So the third set I did 5, and the fourth set I did 4. And in between I was going along the turf with these explosive sled pushes, not heavy weight, but trying to stay within good technique, thinking about where my heel recovery was, and maintaining dorsiflexion. And after that, I went into a couple of sets for high sets AMRAP push-ups. And those I was also supersetting with something for the core. I was basically doing some work for the upper chest and maintaining a good isometric contraction in the rest of the body, so that was engaging the core to an extent. And then I was getting into something more targeting the lower part of the core. So I was doing some leg raises with an extra weight at the end of my leg, squeezed between my feet, and I was keeping my back against the floor. So the way that I'm usually doing leg raises is by hanging onto the bar, but I've noticed that tends to put a bit too much stress and tension on my glutes. So I've tried to just change the body orientation, and I was happy to see that, probably because there isn't that much tension on the extended glute, the stretched glute at the top of the range of motion, which is where my legs are basically parallel with the force of gravity. That was probably what made them bearable to me and allowed me to get good tension at the bottom of the exercise when my legs are fully perpendicular to the force of gravity instead, and there isn't much stretch on the glute. So I was able to kind of manipulate my body orientation in space in allowing me to get an exercise that I feel is beneficial for the lower part of the core musculature, and also the upper part of the quads, the hip flexors, and yeah, getting it done without really triggering any discomfort in the glutes. So an exercise that I always wanted to get in a different way, and that was a good thing to know. So at that point, I was finished with most of the heavy stuff and the volume work. So I got some isolation for the front of the leg. So I was doing the leg extensions, an exercise that I also, similarly to the calf raises, I haven't really done ever to my memory. And so I wasn't really going super heavy in weight, but that wasn't really my focus, because similarly again to the calf raises, I wanted to get in some explosive repetitions. And so I loaded in a way that I was able to get those in, and I was supersetting that again with something for the upper body, which was some low raises. So it ended up being a very organic and seamless session. Some heavy stuff for both the upper and the lower body in the lower rep range, some isolation with higher reps, and overall, yeah, satisfied. Ciao.